Good morning. I call the meeting to order at 9:01. If you can please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you are participating remotely, please mute your microphone. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. City Clerk, if you can please take the roll.
Mayor Lopez,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Larios,
Here.
Councilmember Merlo,
Here.
Councilmember Ibarra. Here. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
There are none.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move Ibarra.
I'll second Larios.
Motion by Councilmember Ibarra, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Larios to approve the agenda. I'll call the roll. Mayor Lopez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Larios,
Yes.
Councilmember Merlo,
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We will now take public comments from members of the audience. If you would like to provide public comment, please come to the podium or click the raise hand button on Zoom. Do we have any public comments?
We have no comments in the chamber and we have no raised hands.
Okay. We will now go on to presentations. Agenda item number 1 is draft local hazard mitigation plan public review. City Clerk Pope will present this item.
Good morning, Mayor and council members. The item before you is a presentation on the draft local hazard mitigation plan. Staff has been working with our consultant to prepare the draft, and the draft is now ready for public dissemination and comment. We have Aaron on Zoom joining us from Atlas Planning, who will present the PowerPoint.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'll go ahead and share my screen and we can get going here.
I don't think they can hear.
Can you see the screen okay?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. So today we'll just be talking about the City of Vernon Local Hazard Mitigation Plan. The plan, I'll just briefly go over kind of what it is, which is it's the preparation of a local hazard mitigation plan. The city currently has one, but it is very out of date. So led by the Vernon City Clerk's Department and using some FEMA grant funding, this plan is being put together because we're hoping to help the city in gaining access to future mitigation grant opportunities through the Federal Emergency Management Agency. And so with these types of projects, when they're grant funded, there is a local match requirement. FEMA will pick up 75% of the costs, and then the other 25% comes from the city. And in this case, staff time is being applied to the matching grant funds. To fit this into the bigger picture of how we address hazards as a community, the city and all cities in California are required to have what's known as a general plan safety element that complies with the California Government Code. And the city currently has a safety element in place. This is really focused on looking at the long-term effects of hazards and how to address them in the long term. And so there's a lot less detail in a safety element, whereas when something bad happens in a community, that's really where an emergency operations plan, the EOP, takes effect and helps drive how the city responds. That has a high degree of specificity, and it's really focused on a short time frame or short timeline, usually days, weeks, and maybe as much as months. The hazard mitigation plan, local hazard mitigation plan, really fits right in the middle. We're looking at a 5-year strategic plan that has a high degree of or a moderate degree of specificity during that time frame of how you want to try to address some of the concerns within the community. So what is hazard mitigation itself? It's really a way to look at where are there potential hazards within a community, what are your potential risks and vulnerabilities to those hazards, and then what are the steps or actions that you could take to try to minimize, reduce those risks and vulnerabilities, in hopes that when a disaster does occur, the effects of it are less than they would have been if you had done nothing, if you had taken no action. And the plan itself is really how you memorialize that process. So it's very process driven. So what we look at is discussing, again, the hazards of the community, analyzing your risks, then identifying policies or projects that can be undertaken to reduce that risk. And the biggest piece to this, which a lot of communities, in my experience, really fall short on, is what do you do when it comes to implementation and monitoring for that 5-year time frame? Because these plans only are good for 5 years. That's when your eligibility window is for the grant opportunities, and then you have to update them. And so that's really where I think a lot of communities struggle, and hopefully in our process, we've been able to provide Vernon with the tools necessary to make that easy. We had a large group that participated in this process, as you can see on the screen, all city departments, and then obviously some additional entities that support the city on a daily basis, or that are critical to kind of city functioning operations. And then again, why are we preparing this every year? There are 2 grant funding sources that come out as line items in the congressional budget. Those are the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grant program and the Flood Mitigation Assistance grant program. So every year there is money set aside specifically for cities like Vernon to pursue grants to mitigate hazards. And then there's the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, which is attached to every FEMA disaster declaration signed by the president. And so by having this plan in place, you then become eligible to pursue those types of grants. So what hazards did we cover and address in the plan? Here are the hazards you can see. Seismic hazards is a very big one for all communities throughout California. Obviously, drought is a huge one right now for California and the West. And then, flooding, dam failure, severe wind. And then we put climate change in there, but we address climate change throughout all hazards instead of having it as a standalone hazard, and really try to tie this analysis and information into what the city's already doing when it comes to these types of concerns. So the process that was undertaken, we spent about a year working with the city staff and departments on plan development. We're now in the phase of releasing it out for public review and coordinating with stakeholders and getting feedback. After that period is complete, this plan will go up to the California Office of Emergency Services and start the review process with Cal OES, and then ultimately it'll go on to FEMA for their final review and approval. And once that's approved by FEMA, it'll come back to City Council for plan adoption, which we hope will be early 2023. There is a public participation component to this. We did an online survey. We received 10 responses from this online survey. We put it online on the city's website using all social media like Facebook and Twitter. We also did a joint commission meeting with the Business and Industry, Green and Housing commissions. Obviously, we're here today, and this will be released as of today for several weeks for the public to have an opportunity to provide any feedback they desire. And then the final piece is plan implementation. So after it comes to City Council for adoption, it's really important that on a regular basis, the plan is revisited internally with city staff, and you're using it hopefully to your advantage. So every time grant opportunities present themselves, the city is able to jump on submitting applications and trying to hopefully get additional funding in to help mitigate some of the hazards and concerns. And one of the things that we've developed is in the appendix to this plan. It's an implementation handbook that really is intended to help not only City Council, but all of the staff within the city to kind of understand what you do when certain instances occur within the city, like a statutory requirement to update a particular city document or some sort of disaster, whatever it might be. We've tried to list out helpful hints on ways that you can try to tap into these mitigation grant dollars when the opportunity presents itself. With that, happy to answer any questions you have, and thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Does City Council have any questions?
Mayor, if I could just add, thank you to staff and our consultants at Atlas. As Aaron indicated, we don't currently have a plan, which means we are not currently eligible for grant funding in the case of disasters. This process, as you may recall, is based on a grant that the city received that the fire department applied for a couple of years back. So it is grant funded. 20% is city covered, which is generally staff time. So at this point, we're putting the plan out for public review. We hope that everyone in the community will take a look at it. The public review period runs through September, at which point we would forward it on to the appropriate agencies, Cal OES and FEMA, for their review and input. There's no questions. That concludes the item.
Thank you. We will now go on to the consent calendar. All matters listed on the consent calendar may be approved with one motion. Items may be removed from the consent calendar by any member of the council. Those items removed will be considered immediately after the consent calendar. Does council wish to pull any items from the consent calendar?
No.
No.
Are there any public comments for the consent calendar in the chambers or on Zoom?
We have no comments in the chambers and no raised hands on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion for consent calendar item numbers 2 through 9?
Move Merlo. I'll second Larios.
Motion by Councilmember Merlo, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Larios to approve the consent calendar. I'll call the roll. Mayor Lopez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Larios,
Yes.
Councilmember Merlo,
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We will now go on to new business. Agenda item number 10 is the 2022 League of California Cities Bylaws Amendments. City Clerk Pope will present this item.
Thank you. As you are aware, the League of California Cities has its annual conference, which starts tomorrow. Last meeting, the council appointed Councilmember Ibarra as the delegate and Mayor Pro Tem Larios as the alternate. The item before you are amendments to the league's bylaws. And the purpose of this item is to provide direction to the delegate and alternate on whether or not they should vote to approve the amendments.
Does council have any questions or?
I read it and I think it should be okay. I would advise to say yes.
So a motion to direct the delegate and alternate to vote in favor of the amendments would be appropriate.
Okay,
We have a motion by Councilmember Ibarra,
I'll second Larios.
seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Larios to direct the delegate to vote in favor of the proposed bylaw amendments. Mayor Lopez,
yeah,
Mayor Pro Tem Larios,
Yes.
Councilmember Merlo,
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Yes.
Motion carries. You're up.
now on to oral reports. Are there any reports?
Good morning, honorable mayor and council members. Obviously, the state of California is experiencing a severe drought and also severe electricity shortage. So we ask everybody's patience during this time while we do our best as a utility to help mitigate the circumstances. Please be aware that we are working together with our resource group and our Vernon Public Utilities to ensure that we continue continuity of service to all customers prior to any rolling blackouts. So we're expected to have, heat probably through the end of heat wave, probably through the end of Thursday. Looks like the weather report's showing maybe some relief Friday and Saturday with some rain. So, but our electricity grid here in Vernon is holding up strong, and we're not experiencing any problems. We did have a small intermittent problem with the power plant, but it was just a shortage of about 7 megawatts, and it was a short period of time that we had to derate, but we're back to normal. And I think they're gonna look at it today, make sure it's all ready to go. So the state's emergency load reduction program, as you know, the heat wave has caused great concern that we may have a rolling blackout. To prevent this, the California Energy Commission and the governor's office presented a new demand response program called the Energy Load Reduction Program, asked water utilities to put their water systems on backup generators. I know that some of you had some questions, and that's why the generators were running. One of the generators were running yesterday is because of the program that was implemented. So VPU participated and put well 19 on a backup generator, and we ran it for about an hour yesterday. The utility will continue to plan for meaningful ways to contribute in conservation efforts. League of California Cities Annual Conference and Expo is today. The week starts tomorrow, I believe. The several city staff members will be attending this league's annual conference and the Expo in Long Beach Convention Center. As in previous years, the 2022 conference will offer educational and innovative leadership sessions across a variety of formats with a roster of more than 100 speakers. The league's annual conference consists of offers a valuable opportunity for city leaders to learn about relevant topics in facing municipalities. New business welcome breakfast will be next September 14th. I believe that's a Wednesday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Career Day will be October 5th from 5 to 6:30 p.m. So Career Day is basically an invitation to community youth to come to Vernon. It's not necessarily, we're inviting local high schools, local students, local youth to come in and speak with our working professionals here at the city. That'll be October 5th from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. And then followed by Halloween Spectacular, which will be October 27th from 5 to 7. During the day, the city staff will host students from the Vernon Elementary School as they experience a Halloween maze here with the police department. And then at night, we'll have our event. And that concludes my reports, unless you have any questions for me.
Are there any reports from council?
None.
We will now go on to closed session for agenda item number 11. We are back from closed session at 9:33.
Council met in closed session on item number 11 and no reportable action was taken.
With no further business, I adjourn the council meeting at 9:33.